What's going on, Workforce? Brian and Chris here, talking about Lost Ark, the upcoming action MMORPG. Yes, it is an MMO. It's also isometric, so it does have a blending of, like, you might see Path of Exile, Diablo references. And the question is our communities that really enjoy those games also going to enjoy those style games brought into a true theme park MMORPG? This has been a game that has been long rumored to be coming finally to the West, and it drops early access February 8th, full release February 11th as a free-to-play game. And so there's lots of questions that we see keep getting asked. Chris, you said, like, hey, Brian, let's talk about Lost Ark. I'm hearing a lot of chatter about it. What do I need to know about it? So I figured this would be a great representation. Chris is representing the player who might not know what this game is, and I'm representing the player who's played over in Korea for quite a while. I never played the Russian version, but I do have some definitely information for you guys to share today. So Chris, the floor is yours. What questions do you want to know about the upcoming Lost Ark MMO?
All right, so I know a little bits here and there. So it's a Korean-based MMO that's been around. I think it's about 4 years old.
Yep, 4.
And it has a whole cycle of content, has classes and all of that, and they are bringing it over. It is not coming over all at once,
Correct.
And so not all the classes are coming over. And so my question, first of all, to you is, what is the content pacing? Does it release, or do they plan on catching up with the Korean one? Will it always be a certain distance behind? Like, it seems like they're releasing part of existing content.
Yeah, in an interesting way. So they're taking, actually, it's not like we're getting the version from 4 years ago. We're getting, technically, I would say, a version maybe from 2 years ago, but even classes that were introduced later are actually being brought in. Classes that were at the beginning have been moved out, and they actually just did a class shift. So Summoner got moved out in favor of, like, I think Sorcerer in this case. Now, classes are, the one thing you should know about classes is they are gender locked, and that's a typical question about especially Korean-based MMORPGs. So that means, like, this class is either female or this class is either male, and that is something that is set, just so you know.
Original Diablo was like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. It's like for a lot of players, it's like it's a non-issue. But I see that question asked.
You're playing the sorceress.
The sorceress, exactly.
The barbarian.
So as far as content pacing, I think that's going to be something that is ultimately answered by action rather than words, because they're continuing to develop Lost Ark in Korea, and Amazon is the publisher here in the West, and they're going to be bringing out updates. Right now for New World, they bring out an update about once every month. I don't know if that's going to be the same matched kind of pacing for Lost Ark, and you would assume that if Lost Ark in Korea is developed like every 3 months, they would catch that up with eventually. I don't believe they have a plan to bring it on quote-unquote parity, because you're never going to play with the characters over in Korea or even in Russia. So ultimately it's going to be on its kind of own path, and it has its own specialized development for Western audiences. So they've changed up how the cash shop works. They've changed how a lot of the systems of monetization works for more, what they would believe to be more, amicable to Western audiences. And so from a content perspective, though, we do and will always have kind of a window into what is coming. I can't speak to at what pace it will be coming. We will have a better way of gauging that over the course of 2022.
Okay, and so monetization, we're talking free to play here. So
Yes.
The very next question is, then what is this amicable monetization to a free to play game? You and I have typically shied away from free to play games. We're not without playing them. You play Genshin, I play Lords Mobile, so like we do play them, but it's not predominantly where we spend our time. What is the plan here?
So, as with all monetization, especially in free-to-play, there's going to be players who will feel like that they have to spend money in order to, like, get the better experience. There is an optional sub. It's called the Aura system, and that is going to give you absolutely benefits. So you're going to get definitely some perks, and then you choose whether you want that, but it is not required for you to play. You can actually play this game like completely as a solo adventure through the dungeons. So the question of monetization, I think, is only going to end up kind of hitting probably an upper 10% of that kind of more hardcore sweaty base. So the fan base who's really like engaged with it is probably going to be the ones who engage with that kind of monetization. If I was a player and I was concerned about pay to win, I don't have that concern with Lost Ark. As long as you're not one of the, like, if this is your be all end all, you're gonna pay the, the
So it is pay to win
subscription.
at the top tier. So for the
Yes.
Savage equivalent, it is pay to win.
Yeah, you're gonna find yourself wanting
But
to
you can
spend the
enjoy
money.
it without that. So
Correct.
it just depends on your definition of win. If you're trying to have fun, there's plenty of fun to be had.
Correct.
But if you are trying to be competitive with a friend who is
Yeah.
spending, that friend will just outpace you.
I played the, like, in the Korea version, and I didn't have to spend a single dime, and I had a great time. I mean, I had to in order to get a Korean account, I did have to, like, pay somebody, but at the end of the day, like, that wasn't a part of the monetization of the game itself. So that's where the monetization comes into that tricky perspective. Like, if I was going to no life this game and this is going to be the one game I play, you're already so far in love that, like, spending the, for the RO system, like, is a no brainer. But if you're sitting here going like, wait a minute, they're trying
So
to,
how much is the sub?
I would assume it's probably about 12 or 13, $15. I don't know. I haven't done the math on the subscription.
How much is ESO Plus? Like, ESO is that's starting to give me some ESO vibes, right?
Mhm.
Like that there is this kind of base version that's pretty easy to get access to, but for people that stick around, you're going to start spending a little bit. And, like, honestly, with Guild Wars,
Yeah.
I feel the same way, and I've been frustrated over the years. One of my complaints is that they don't have an optional sub, and really what I want is they do sell this premium currency. I just want them to set up recurring payment. Because from an analytics standpoint, what I don't want is them to see me buy the gems and use the gems on a specific mount, and them to get the impression that more of those mounts is what I'm trying to support. I want them to see, no, this guy just buys gems and doesn't even use them. Like, that's the message I want to send.
Yeah.
Is that I just support development. And also, if I ever turn that sub off, that's the message I want to send. I want to use my money as a communication method with the devs to say, like, I just support the ongoing development of this game, or I no longer support the ongoing development of this game. And so, like, optional subs don't bother me, that 12 or 13, but, like, it being tied to pay to win, and not just, like, unlocking certain types of content, I can see that being a point of friction, in that, like, somebody's just going to have more than you.
Yeah. What will be interesting to see as players kind of drive in is that as you play, you can earn. And the problem is they also have, like, 4 types of currencies. They have this ultra premium. They have, so it's like there is, like, currency. There's currency moving.
Speaking
like,
of streamer complaining, you know that I'm going to complain about that.
Oh yeah, Crystal complained about that, but it's that there's the ability to earn and get the items, so somebody ends up purchasing things. So it was like at its core, when it comes down to, like, monetization, like I'm not bothered by how Lost Ark is set up. Having played it and having had fun, I was like, yeah, I'll go ahead and get the optional sub. So I went ahead and bought the quote unquote founders pack. So I have, like, I've got the optional sub, I've got all these things for at least a little bit of time, and then after that, it's going to be a question of whether I decide to continue, like, to support him financially if I'm continuing to obviously play this game quite a bit. And it comes down to, when it comes down to any kind of question about pay to win, I don't believe in blanket statements, because everybody's going to have a different definition. And I've heard some interesting people's opinions about interesting ways that which other MMOs monetize that I wouldn't consider pay to win, but others consider pay to win. And everybody's got their definition of win. And so if your definition of just playing the game and having fun and, playing it casually, like, it's not pay to win. If it's all of a sudden you're trying to be ultra competitive, then yeah, you're probably going to find yourself, wanting to spend the money. Not because I think anybody's kicking your butt in PvP, because PvP is evenly balanced. But more or less that you're like, okay, I want to make sure that, like, I've got the best resources. I've got this. I'm actively trying to, spend money in the game. And, obviously you want more games. So that's how that works for me.
Now, you've gotten to play some beta, right?
I played the beta here in North America, but I also played the Korean version.
Okay. And so how long do you think it's going to take to get to, like, a monthly subs worth of earned currency? Like, how many hours would I have to play every month? If you just log in casually, but you pay, and I grind the crap out of this game, what's that conversion there? How many hours do I play before I pass you?
Oh my gosh. I think that's where they're going to, like, the paying is obviously the easier route. But I think from a grinding currency,
$13. It's like,
yeah. I think
at Sam's Club for an hour or two.
I think you'll end up putting 40 to 60 hours essentially to match. So it's like you're grinding at like $2 to $3 per hour. That would be, but that doesn't. There's also no economy there, so that could essentially, like, I could be way off, in a month's time when all of a sudden everything kind of evens out. So
Are there going to be microtransactions
Oh, yeah.
kind of constantly in front of you?
Yeah, and they'll have like so one of the changes they made for the Western version is that the microtransactions as a part of their like rotator shop. In the Korean version was like, you had like 24 hours to make a decision. Here they're giving you like 3 days or something like that, and things obviously rotate in and out. So yeah, they got to load that FOMO to get you to be like, And so as somebody who's got a founders pack, I'm sure that I'll end up blowing through all that currency because it loses its like real money like value because you're like, oh, I'm not spending dollars, I'm spending crystals here. That's why they do it.
They do it. Josh Dreyfus has a whole video on it. I think you referenced him earlier. So like that Josh Dreyfus has talked about like the more times you change currency, the further it gets from currency in your mind. So that's part of it.
Yeah.
So from there, like, can you sell items or give items to other players? Is there going to be an RMT black market? There's RMT.
There's always RMT in every market and economy. Yes, you can have. There's player trading, so you can trade now. Like, and as far as it goes, like that's the thing we'll end up having to see. Like, is there going to be like a massive black market for the game? I think the fact that it's free to play like will be interesting to see how they manage like bots and chat accounts and things like that, especially if the game's super popular. Because I saw somebody complaining about like, man, they nobody can get rid of this bot spam, and it's like all you can do is right click and report, and I don't think there's a perfect AI for it, but who knows what will happen.
So then I think that was a long time about monetization. I think that's going to be the hot button topic with this game. We could talk about it till we're blue in the face, and like I view winning as coming out ahead of another player, and so I think this game sounds like it's pay to win. I don't know if you got to spend any time with BDO. I played Lords Mobile. Lords Mobile is absolutely pay to win. Like somebody who spends thousands of dollars a month, they are winning over me. It just isn't stopping my fun, but they are winning. Like I cannot take them on. So like I have a friend that's just recently picked up the game, and he's like, wow, I'm hitting 12 and 17 million power within the game, and I'm up at 460 million. He's got, you've got to be like unstoppable. And I'm like, no, I'm not unstoppable. I can be stopped by anybody who spends crazy money per month. So he just doesn't see that yet because I'm ridiculously powerful compared to him. But no, anybody who spends serious money can still absolutely slam me in the face. But I am well ahead of most free-to-play players. Probably not all, but I'm up there. And so like I just kind of take my wins where I can get them, and I pick on the people I can pick on, and I'm very well aware of when a whale comes by, I have to just quietly like, don't look at me. And so that's part of it. But like what am I gonna spend my time doing in the game from two perspectives? Let's say I am paying. Let's say people are okay with this type of model. They want to support the development of this game. They enjoy it. What are the people who are spending their time doing? And then what are the casual people doing? Is this kind of a one and done like God of War? I played everything once. Or is this more ongoing like a Path of Exiles or Diablo, where there's a lot of emphasis on replaying the same content?
There's a lot of like dungeons that can be taken on solo with groups and various different difficulties. End game raids that exists. So essentially from a casual player, like I think there is definitely a difficulty that they could easily slot in and actually find a lot of enjoyment. You have a lot of game to play, a lot of things to explore. Then obviously you get into the kind of the daily rewarding systems and getting you kind of coming back. They want to get you, logging in every day and, playing a little bit of the game itself. Now, obviously that casual player is going to either like really get connected into the world and their character, and they're going to want to, continue to explore and build out, their resources, their bases and things like that. Or they could just play through the story and decide to come back with various updates. So the game is very flexible. I think that's actually one of the strengths that it's going to have and offer over the course of 2022. As we talk about so many games launching, it's not going to be a game that a casual player feels like, like, okay, I didn't log in for a week, so well, I guess I'm not going to do the thing I wanted to do or the dungeon that I wanted to do. It's like, no, you can still log in and team up. I think what will be interesting in terms of like the hardcore player is like, are the raids and what is the offering that is available at launch, is that going to be enough to essentially like feed that hunger, keep that loop going? Because there are some like various like restrictions to what you're like, hey, we don't want you to essentially like do that one raid 1,000 times in one day. So I think there's going to be some walls that are going to push back on players, but it's going to be hard to say specifically in terms of the overall health. The curiosity I have is that is Lost Ark going to be something that captures the Diablo and Path of Exile market, being that it actually is also an MMO? So it's like, is there crossover in the isometric style? That's something that I have that I'm actually watching for within the community itself, because I think essentially, as somebody who has been looking forward to this game coming to the West and having played it, and when I was playing it, I was like, wow, Diablo's in trouble if they don't do something. Like, it's like you feel like this
we
is
said the same
next
about
level.
Temtem with Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
We said the same thing. Like you gotta step up, guys. Like, you've had your chance. You know, you were given 20 years. They didn't come in and take it from you.
Yeah.
And so we felt the same about Temtem with Pokemon, that like they are taking something from Pokemon that Pokemon gave up. And so, like, I hope Temtem long term has success, but this has more backing than Temtem. This has more runway than Temtem.
Well, and what
so
tells
the
me
weaknesses
that,
of Temtem was, will they actually be able to keep up with the content? And the answer has really been like, that's a real struggle. But with Lost Ark, it's like, no, they've got 4 years of content. It's already made.
yeah,
And so there's a huge advantage.
Yeah. And Lost Ark's actually been really surging in Korea, as we saw like last year with pretty much kind of the biggest decline in WoW. It ended up dispersing out players into a lot of different areas, and in Korea, Lost Ark really greatly benefited from that. You know, like where we saw 14 as more of a global, you know, benefactor of that, you know, those events. You know, Lost Ark has really actually benefited over there as well. And it's not just WoW. Like, there was other games that players are eventually, they just kind of said, we're done. And so a lot of players filtered into that. So from a health perspective, like, that actually would say, like, hey, is Lost Ark worth my time investing in it? It's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, you do know there's more content coming. They're doing really well in Korea, so it's not like the game shut down in Korea and then they're just kind of farming it out to the West for people who wanted to play it and then it's done. It's like, no, they're still developing the Korean version. They're still bringing content. They're having them more success than they've ever had before with the game over there, and now it's coming to the West, which is a good you know, roadmap for the game and for its health. So I think that is going to be really interesting to see.
Cool. Well, I was in a number of WoW streams this weekend. All these new Microsoft game players. Hopefully that deal goes through, and many of them were taking an interest in Lost Ark. So I think something coming over with a different visual style. I think it will be a welcome change. I do think for a lot of people, they're going to come in, they're going to try it, they're going to go as far as free or a very small amount of money takes them. And it's going to get a big surge in popularity, and then it'll drop down to what its kind of organic base is. But hopefully that's enough that New World continues to benefit from Amazon having more in its stable. I think in general, the question with Amazon is like, are they here to stay? And so having multiple games that have at least some base, even if it's a relatively kind of like small base, it doesn't matter. Just some ongoing support. I think having another player in the space is good, especially for people that are concerned about like Microsoft and Activision merging, you know, as two of the top 10s merging. Having somebody else come in and have a stronger position in kind of the top 10 publishers it helps keep a little bit of variety in gaming.
Absolutely. Chris, why don't you take us out?
Well, Brian and I have all sorts of things to talk about. Hopefully we'll be getting back to recording more regularly. So hopefully you guys enjoy these discussions. If you have any upcoming topics, there's a lot to be excited about in MMOs. Let us know in the comments down below. Take care. We'll see you next time.